Donc, Zairong, pour le présenter un petit peu, est un universitaire, chercheur qui travaille donc dans un cadre comparatif sur des mythologies de la création extrêmement diverses, notamment les mythes de la création mésoaméricains, le nawa dans lequel le verbe être n'existe pas non plus d'ailleurs, on pourra peut-être y faire une allusion. Et donc, Zairong fait tout un travail dans ce très beau livre Queer Ancient Ways, dans lequel il va voir pourquoi est-ce qu'il y a eu une lecture a posteriori qui a été faite, principalement dans des moments coloniaux, qui a enfermé divers mythes de la création, que ce soit donc dans le contexte mésoaméricain, que ce soit dans le contexte babylonien, dans une perspective binaire, alors que beaucoup d'autres histoires peuvent être racontées, beaucoup d'autres manières de faire circuler ces mythes peuvent exister. Zairong est aussi curateur. Il a été le co-curateur avec Anton Vidocq et, on va appeler ça la team Iflux de la Biennale de Shanghai. Cosmos Cinéma, extraordinaire exposition, je dois dire, vraiment, qui était absolument réjouissante. Et aujourd'hui, il va venir nous parler de jardin évidemment d'Éden, mais dans une perspective absolument original qui va nous présenter ici avec cette présentation The Queer Flourishing of 10,000 Things. Zairong, merci d'être avec nous.
Merci Martin pour l'introduction et pour l'invitation. Et merci toute l'équipe LUMA, spécialement Juliette Kertning et les autres collègues pour l'accueillement et pour faire possible ce retour pour moi au sud de France après plus que 10 ans en fait. Aussi un grand merci pour les traducteurs et traductrices behind the scene. Normalement, je pourrais faire la conférence en français, mais ça fait très longtemps que je n'utilise pas dans les contextes académiques. Alors, je vais parler en anglais aujourd'hui. Ça, c'est une invitation, s'il vous plaît, m'inviter de nouveau et souvent pour que je puisse ne plus utiliser « ça fait longtemps » comme excuse.
Le message est très clair.
Martin a annoncé hier, maintenant aussi, que j'allais parler de Adam. Hein? Ce que j'ai dit, Adam n'est pas homme avant Genèse chapitre 2, 22 et après. Je vais lire un paragraphe de ce texte publié dans une collection d'essais sur la science, la religion et l'écologie. C'est quelques moments dans le texte. Now let us go back to the suspended moment of the dizzying paradox that Adam should be seen as sexually undifferentiated before the creation of woman. If we regard Adam as yellow emperor's body of orifices, that is either sexless and gendered, with their yin-yang attributed, on different generative level at the scale of the universe, we might understand Adam fashioned from Adama, the earth, as a body of a body of superposition that is not male or female, or androgynous yet. This superposition only gets resolved, so to speak, with the creation of woman from Adam's rib, and so on and so forth. Comme ce texte est déjà publié, je pense que c'est peut-être plus intéressant d'aller un peu loin du jardin, du paradis judéo-chrétien, pour une étape avant, en fait, et peut-être aussi après, de vous partager une recherche autour de ce corps des orifices qui a plus ou moins commencé, cette recherche qui a plus ou moins commencé il y a 10 ans, après la soutenance de ma thèse, en fait, c'était pas loin d'ici, à Perpignan, which has become my surprisingly widely circulated book named Queer Ancient Ways. The other point of origin, so to speak, of this current project that I'm going to present come from a footnote where I cited Paul Preciado's a minor text. I see him in the audience. I want to just mention this. A text called Terror Anal that accompanied the Spanish translation of XIXᵉ's 1972 Le Désir homosexuel. But it could also be said to have been influenced by this next image I saw in Tuscany when I spent some time after I finished my PhD thesis to recuperate my energy from the satire newspaper Vernaccolieri. Someone might understand what is going on. Today, I would like to invite you to rethink our body starting from a key point, or actually a keyhole of the body as it is conceived in Chinese medicine, especially in the Huangdi Neijing or the Yellow Emperor's inner canon. The bodily orifices or the body as orifice. We will examine the so-called reverse anthropocentrism of the body of orifices as a connector between heaven and earth, and as a porous entity that is both a part and a reflection of the cosmos. Then we will see how this model of the body tells us about the world's maintenance and flourishing. So in the mythical classic Huangdi Neijing or Yellow Emperor's inner canon, around the time of the Warring States, that's 5th to 2nd century BC, the human body is known through its 9 orifices, which are said to connect with its 5 inner depots, where precious energies are stored and contained. The conversation is recorded in chapter 4 of XIXᵉ Yan, or the true words from the golden closet. One can write a lot of queer reading about this title already. Anyway, Qibo, the erudite doctor, explained this connection between these bodily orifices, or qiao, with the 5 inner depots in this way that I've put it schematically. So there's the cardinal direction, there's color, there is the depots or inner organ, but they are not really organ, and they connect to the 9 orifices of the body. It is easy to notice that this model of the body is almost completely porous, right? So the representation in between scare quotes of the body is only through its holes. Take the cardinal point north as an example. Qibo explained the seasonal collections and reception of the north in chapter 4 of these simple questions of Yellow Emperor's canon, as you see on the slide. The north, black color, having entered it, communicates with the kidneys. It opens an orifice in the 2 yin sides. It stores essence in the kidneys. Hence, the disease it brings forth is in the ravens. The connection between the inner depots and the outer orifices, in this case between the kidney function or kidney organ and the 2 insides, is articulated with a concept that is central to the porous body. Kai qiao, it's called. Literally, this concept means open, kai, orifice, qiao. So here, as in English, kai or open can be both a verb, so to open, right, transitive, and an adjective, so intransitive. That orifice is unblocked, opened, or kai qiao de, right, if we want. Connection is therefore imagined or imaged primarily through permeability, pervasion, and porosity, rather than a joining together of separated or separable entities. Qiao is the word for orifice, a polyvalent and polysemic word. The So the second century dictionary that explains the composition or the etymology of Chinese characters explain qiao in the following manner. Qiao, that is emptiness, connotes a cave and bears the sound of jiao. It is primarily used to designate bodily orifices, the visible ones, for example, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, the mouth, the genitals, and the anus, as well as the invisible ones, closely related to occupants, using the word xue, which also means a cave, as you see on the PowerPoint. The porous body of connecting orifices is a key, or more precisely, a hole to an understanding of the fundamental relationship between cosmic vitality and sexual vitality. The whole lies at the center of the concept of pervasion, or tong. Closely related to kaiqiao, tong, read in a transitive manner, connotes, according to medical scholar Volker Scheidt, I quote, the openness and, by extension, unblocking of the conduits and networks, read intransitively, unhindered physiological process and activity of any kind, end of quote. It further points to an understanding of nature and the cosmos in an interpenetrating framework that is not preoccupied with the boundaries between the human and non-human worlds. That is, beyond or among the 10,000 things that are inert or alive, boundaries that we might have come accustomed to consider as self-evident, historical or cross-cultural. One figure stands out quite prominently is the cave, or the grotto. In the etymological explication of qiao, the word xue is used, which designate another, albeit less tangible orifice, as I mentioned, the occupants. The other common word that is much more frequently used in philosophical and religious Taoism is the cave, xue or dong. The very nature that is emphasized here is the cave's tong, so the dong's tong, that is unblocked, right? A cave that you can go through it. The largely homophonous Chinese language often establishes connections through puns, based either on homophones or neighboring sounds or characters that share in one way or other similarities that point to mythical dimensions of the pervasive connectivity of the 10,000 things. I mean, this feature is not that strange, right? Someone told me always that the entire postmodern philosophy is based on French puns, right? So in the sense here, similar. So that is to say, linguistic porosity here is also epistemological. It is not a coincidence, but forms part of a wider connections and correlations that have been established through the long philosophical, mythic, and medical traditions. These similarly straightforward disciplinary separation are, of course, also easily permeated. The resonance between the grotto, dong, the permeability or pervasion, tong, is therefore not only a pun based on phonetic resonance, it also emerges from a cosmology of holes, kong, and emptiness, kong. Okay? We have dong, tong, kong, and kong. The body of orifices, the mountain and the heaven and earth all share the same, what Taoist scholar James Miller calls locative emptiness, which is what brings together these three dimensions of the cosmos in profound relationship. But emptiness, kong, is never quite empty. It hollows out ontological essentialism, yet fills with cosmic multiplicity, unfolds and infolds into a dizzying, multiplying cosmos of the 10,000 things. Chapter 42 of the Taoist classic Tao Te Ching goes, Tao Sheng Yi, Yi Sheng Er, Sheng San, San Sheng Wan Wu. Tao generates one, one generates two, two generates three, three generates the 10,000 things. These profound connections are therefore elucidated by the very hexagram tie that describes the cosmic great harmony often invoked to represent the body of orifices in philosophical and medical treatises. So this hexagram. Take again the cardinal north as an example. The north and the black color, 开窍与二阴 open its orifices into the two yin sides, according to the Yellow Emperor's inner canon. I'm using a translation from a scholar called Unschuld, and his translation needs slight adjustment. The north opens orifices instead of an orifice in the two yin sides. What does the two yin side might refer to? What are the two yin sides? In Shanju Xingyu, Yang Yu interprets the two yin sides as 二变, that is two genitals. So here, what 人中 the philtrum? So this, do you know this word? I had to look up. So this part is called the philtrum. In Chinese, it literally means the middle of the body, right? The philtrum marks this. From this above, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils are double orifices. From here below, the mouth, the two outlets are all singular orifices. This forms, therefore, an hexagram type. It is easy to mistake the two yin or two orifices or outlets for the male and the female genitals. After all, in vernacular Chinese, they are respectively called the yin stem, so penis is called yin jing, the yin stem, and yin passage, yin dao, that is vagina. However, in this case, the anus would have been left completely unmentioned. In fact, as Unschuld classifies in a footnote, the two insides refer to the outlets of urine and stool. In other words, the two insides or outlets points to the genitals and the anus as the two yin openings that belong to the lower body. One in the front, 前阴, one in the back, 后阴. That is to say, the two here are not the two biological sexes represented by the penis and the vagina, but the anus and the genital in general. This is also not a one-sex model, as Thomas Laguerre in his influential history of the Western body in Greek antiquity traces to a one-sex model in which the male body, according to him, is taken as a model against which the female body is seen as a less developed and therefore imperfect version. Of course, his theory has been contested. We're not going there. But I just want to say this body of orifices in Chinese medicine is not a one-sex model in the sense that it's modeled on any individual sexuation. Instead, it is indifferent, at this moment at least, to sexual differences, at least with this very quote-unquote representation that categorizes the genitals as the one of the two yin sides. At this moment of visual abstraction of the body is neither sexed nor gendered. The penis is considered to be the same yin orifice, undifferentiated from the female genitals. Although here, Qibo might not have looked closely and miscalculate the number of orifices, but that's a different question. Anatomically speaking, the penis does contain a hollow space. Considering the urethra, the penis is an orifice. Now comes the explanation of the joke I found in Italy. Brevatata la fava 2.0. Patented the fava bean, euphemism for dick, the fava dick 2.0. E sott'acqua fa di persicopio per avvistar le figlie. Underwater, it serves as a periscope to spot the girls. reads the vernacularly dick joke. Periscope looks like this. It needs to be hollow to work. So even in the most sexist dick joke contains an empty space at its center, that the better it works to spy on girls or boys, or the larger the exagerata, the fava dick becomes, its orificity becomes more apparent. Okay, so the bigger the dick, the bigger the hole, basically. This reading of the sexless, genderless body is reductive and limited to the bare minimum of one textual statement without situating it in a broader philosophical and then social historical context. As any medical theory and praxis, Chinese medicine has its own history of changes in tandem with societal changes. For example, Chinese medicine has developed a gendered medicine, that of Fuke, whose cousin in modern biomedicine would be that of gynecology. While it is beyond this talk's purpose and scope to deal with this particular history, it is nonetheless important to stress that despite its promising model of the sex-gender indeterminate body of orifices, throughout China's changing history, equally normative and sometimes no less repressive practices against women abound. Women and sexual minorities abound. Taking the cardinal north in simple questions again as an example, we notice that the human body is open to or within the larger world of the universe. Sinologist Léon van der Mesch terms this anthropomorphisme occidental à l'inverse. So a reversed anthropomorphism, which maps the nature onto the body. Let us look at the correlation once more. The Norse black color, having entered, it communicates with the kidneys, it opens its orifice kaiqiao in the two insides. It stores essence in the kidneys, hence the disease it brings forth is in the ravines. The word ravan, a geological feature of nature, a natural landscape, here is referred to as follows. The large meeting point of flesh are the valleys. The small meeting points of flesh are the ravines. It is the parting of the flesh where the ravine and the valley meeting points are located. Furthermore, the ravine or xigu are the location in the flesh where water flows and stagnates. Hence, in the case of disease affecting the spleen, these ravines are influenced and edema develop. So basically, the reading of the body is through a landscape, right? In Taoist medicine, one can find a lot of image actually that depicts the body as a cave, as a landscape with different features in natural phenomenon onto the body. So the connectivity, therefore, exists not only between the surface porosity of the body and the inner 5 depots, but also with the wider world. A salient example of this porous connectivity is reading XIXᵉ Tai as a model of the body as explained by Yang Yu earlier, quoted above. The 9 orifices separated by the philtrum from the XIXᵉ form the XIXᵉ. But how exactly does this work? We need to probably take one step back and review the working of yin-yang, the 2 fundamental energies or propensities of the universe in which the I Ching is constructed. They are represented, so yin-yang are represented by 2 types of lines. The yin with open lines and the yang with continuous lines. Their connotations need to be situated in the cosmological and philosophical contexts within which the Book of Changes of the I Ching and the inner canon emerged. Etymologically, yin means the northern shadowy side of the mountain, and yang the southern sunny side. If we take the northern hemisphere as the standpoint, the boundary between the north side and the southern side of the mountain also depends on the movement of the sun. Since the sun's movement changes according to an unchangeable route, the differences or boundaries between yin and yang are at once clear and difficult to demarcate. Yin-yang in this sense embodies a principle of the unchangeability of changing or the unchangeability of non-changing, which I came to term transdualism. So it works a little bit like this with a perversion of the English grammar. Yin and yang is either, yin and yang is / are either different and the same. So either marks their difference, same marks their porosity in which they can become each other. More textual evidence for yin-yang sameness differences abound. 系词 or the commentary on the appended phrases and important Confucian commentary on the I Ching relates yin-yang to the Tao. So one yin and one yang, that is called Tao. And right after the generative numerology, the one I said, Tao generates 1, 1 generates 2, 2 generates 3, 3 generates 10,000 things. Right after this numerology of the 10,000 things, Tao Te Ching chapter 42 states, 万物复阴而报阳. The 10,000 things carry yin yet embrace yang. And this is because these two, they come from the same place yet bear different names. Tao Te Ching chapter 1. Let us, don't be scared by this. Let us return now to hexagram Tai. I marked there, it's in the corner. The Book of Changes contains 64 hexagrams composed of free combination of the yin and yang lines and form different types of trigrams, whose coupling further forms the hexagrams. Right? So you have 8 trigrams, and then they combine together, it becomes 64. The ancients have already done the math for us. Hexagram Tai, in particular, describes the cosmic and societal status of the great stability or the great flourishing, which is a result of an ideal status of dynamic balance. To convey the idea of a dynamic stability, Tai has an all-yin upper trigram. Trigram is the 3 lines, right? So the all-yin upper trigram, called Kun, has the propensity to descend, to concretize, and the all-yang lower trigram, Qian, has the propensity to ascend, so they meet, right? Tai forms an image of the intermingling of the 2 fundamental cosmic energies. Furthermore, Kun, the all-yin trigram that is in relation to Qian, denotes the earth, is situated above Qian, the all-yang trigram that in relation to Kun denotes heaven. So this is not unlike the reversed cosmic tree that Patrick mentioned yesterday, and I was very surprised. The previous talk by Mohammed kind of touches upon this as well, right? So I repeat, so basically in this great stability, the earth is situated above and the heaven is below, okay? The missionary style is reversed. Heaven and earth interact perfectly. I love how this joke always lands with a 2-second. Heaven. So the accompanying commentary on the judgment reads, "Heaven and earth interact perfectly, and the 10,000 things communicates." Tong, the word, without obstacle. These above and those below interact perfectly, and their will become one. So here in the Chinese, if you read Chinese, the second line, 上下交而其之同也, those above and those below interact perfectly and they will become one, is probably the origin of the word 同志, which means comrade, which in contemporary queer argot basically means gay. Or homosexual, 同志, so those who share the same will. In order to connect and intermingle, trigrams are placed on the opposite of their usual tendencies. The conventionally feminized descending kun earth is situated above the masculinized ascending qian heaven. The 9 orifices that we've seen in the previous 2 sections are here organized into a reversed cosmic order, with which those above and those below would interact and integrate their wills perfectly. Just as if to prevent any quick accusation of too much contemporary queerness read into the ancient ways, hexagram tai is followed by hexagram pi, which is exactly the opposite, where the cosmic order is observed. Qian, yang above kun, yin, heaven above earth. Yet, surprisingly, this seeming natural order, pi, means stagnation. When communications and connections are blocked, when communications and connections are blocked, so 不通, right, not 通, unblocked. This is simply because the all-yang Qian heaven, now situated in his proper place, continues to ascend, and all yin-yang, all yin-kun earth continue to descend. And these 2 fundamental cosmic energies no longer touch each other. They depart further away, and a great stagnation is thus formed. I have a quick quota. I know my time is... if bodily porosity makes the concept of other untenable, let's call it our shared porosity, what does it mean to rethink bodily and therefore social porosity in a moment which renders bare the very unjust system of production, domination, exploitation, and also representation of the globalized world? We just came out of this 3 years of drama of the COVID, right? So shared porosity is also shared contagion. This frequently traveled world could be, in the language of I Ching, one greatly communicates and unblocked, and therefore hexagram tai, right? The great stability, the harmony and the flourishing and so on. But for whom and to whose detriment? Within the porous world, no one is essentially incompatible with others. The other, as occupying the space of exteriority, has essentially no place in this model. This shared porosity that connects the inner deep depots with the outer orifices opens up to an understanding of the world as premised upon fragile and vulnerable interdependency. It demands a decolonial reconfiguration of knowledge, of the idea of knowledge as mastery and appropriation, of the concept of the human itself, probably, towards an immanent ecology of radical entanglement. It is in this non-separability of difference that renders injustice intolerable. So our shared porosity also means shared contagion. When COVID-19 just hit, it inaugurated the period that could be said to have moved from to the form of P, or to the great stagnation with restricted travel and so on. We all know that. I've been writing various aspects of this project, largely in confinement, first in Europe and then in China, nightmarish lockdown in Shanghai, as it has been either imposed, so the confinement, or recommended by medical and political authorities in different parts of the world. 序卦传, so the commentary that describes the unfolding reasoning of the 64 hexagrams explain the transition from tai to pi, that is from the great stability to great stagnation, as follows. To save time, I will not read. Once entering in hexagram pi, the great stagnation is no longer simply reactive to a word that, quote, cannot or should not be thoroughly unblocked forever. This scenario of an unblockedness always mean very different to different communities. Globalization enabled by colonization and global capitalism, for example, has been largely beneficial to some and greatly detrimental to others. This is particularly true for indigenous communities to the extent that it brought genocide to a large part of the Amerindian populations. The latter would not agree with the assessment of the globalized world as the one that resembles hexagram tai, or the great stability. The flattening narrative of the democratic virus, meaning that the virus infects everyone equally, a very popular thesis in the early days of the pandemic, was quickly proven wrong. Let us remember, if we have already forgotten, that the pandemic has not been democratic. It has disproportionately affected the already socially, economically marginalized groups, who are often at the same time also the essential forces or cornerstones that keep society largely in lockdown running. They are the exploited margin corner or lower end, so-called lower end of the globalized world that has enabled the world's flourishing. Exploitation is not only physical, but symbolic. If we were to follow the I Ching in order to work out and maintain a great stability, however it looked like, of the flourishing of all 10,000 things, the so-called lower end of the hexagram, and metanomically the so-called lower end of the globalized world, the migrant workers, the refugees, the essential workers, should be positioned above, dignified as the primary force that sustains the flourishing of the world, as we have suddenly discovered in the COVID confinement and quickly forgotten now. As tai, that which guarantees the flourishing of 10,000 things, is explicated in the accompanying judgment. I read it again. Heaven and earth interact perfectly, and the mirror things communicate without obstacle. Those above and those below interact perfectly, and they will become one. Thank you.
Merci, Zairong. Thank you so much for this session. I think we have time for a bit of questions. I can maybe start with one comment, which is like, what is so important with the, bringing back this notion of the body of orifice is that there is if we talk about, we're in environmental history, and environment can have one problem of having the idea that environment is what surrounds you and not necessarily what crosses you and what you cross back. And actually, through these very thorough demonstrations, you really bring back this idea of porosity between what happens within the body, not necessarily as a closed envelope, and what happens around it, but that doesn't surround it, what also crosses it. And I think that's a very interesting way of approaching the body. Voilà, on peut prendre des questions si vous en avez, si vous voulez réviser votre chinois aussi, avec quelques notions que vous aurez peut-être apprises. Alors, I take the opportunity then because you do put in other texts this body of orifice in connection with the text of the Genesis of Adam and Eve. And if you can answer relatively quickly, could you tell us what is the connection that you see? How do you reread the myth of Adam and Eve with this connection to the body of orifices that you brought to us?
Okay, thank you for insisting on the
Trying to bring it back to the conference.
The idea, I used in that text, I used this body of orifice that I presented today, this model of this body that is fundamentally porous, to read this creation of Adam, but Adam in small letters. So Adam means human. Yeah, it's a generic. It's not a proper name. It's often very quickly translated. I mean, translation is a big problem in biblical text, right? Both a problem and a very fertile field of exploration. So Adam as human was created. There are different versions, right? If we consider Adam when he capitalized he was created, or they were created as one that is completely porous, walking in a garden, it's difficult to say what gender this is. Of course, this comes from a tradition of feminist rereading of Genesis that would try our best to disagree with this idea that woman is created later, Eve was created later, therefore it justified the repression of women, right? So if we can recuperate this primordial moment and look at carefully at the text, we might find a possibility that the biblical text of all texts, the biblical text could be the ally of contemporary queer rereading, re-engagement of the body, right? So the same way that I worked with this orifice, of course, also writes into the whole tradition that Paul is part of it, of the anal, right? Reading the anality as this place of radical indifference or undifferentiation. Turns out the penis is also part of this host that might help us to radically reshuffle this otherwise taken for granted idea of sexual differentiation and binarism and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Merci Zairong, merci. Il y a des questions, on peut encore prendre une question si on... Vas-y, Tariq.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. One is about leaks, because orifices leak. So how do you think about leaks and the voluntary and involuntary aspects of these orifices? The second question, if we think of the anal is also linked to masochism. In Freud and in Bersani's also reading of Freud. So once we bring the penis along with the anus, how do we rethink that structure, the question of masochism, given your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you. Very important question. The leaking is already built into this model, right? So the reason why this hexagram is maybe, it's no longer there, but you remember this hexagram that is positioned heaven and earth in reverse is because they need to meet, right? They need to copulate, basically. So they need to leak from one to the other. When you reverse it to follow the natural order, they don't communicate, right? Now the question of voluntary and involuntary leak is towards the end, maybe it was too much, right? Towards the end there was this long passage in the 续卦传, this text that is written to help us to understand the mutations, right? The transformation from one hexagram to the other. Why, right? Why after the greatest stability becomes the greatest stagnation? It says things cannot be thorough, things cannot be unblocked forever, right? Unblockedness is not necessarily a good thing. Unblockedness, the kind of we were talking about the fluidity and all this simile, more progressive way of looking at things. As we know, quickly fall into neoliberal trap, right? Fall into colonialism, want the world to be borderless, right? So maybe that in a way answer your question. For the second question about masochism, you invite me to tell people that of this practice called sounding, right? So sounding is you put something into the urethra, and it has to do with the C, actually, the word sounding. Sounding is how you measure, you all seem confused. We got it. You get it? Okay, okay, good. So this is one of the masochist practices. Sounding the word comes from the maritime detection of the depth of the sea, right? And one could write another queer theology of the beginning, right? The face of the deep, right? The tehom, the depth that that needs to be sounded, and we go deep, 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 deep. And of course, this in the first 2 chapters of my book, Queer Ancient Ways, I actually go there to engage with this whole theology of the deep. Yeah? So yeah, so there is that. Towards the end of Leo Bersani's life, so the last book he published, The Receptive Body, he actually went very close to this model of the body, in which he talked about in dream and in oral sex, basically. We could think of the penis as in a passive position, right? It has been sucked and engloved, and so on, right? I actually mentioned that in a recently published text called "We Have to Talk About the Penis," so I can send you that. Yeah.
Just one quick question, even though it probably will not be quick to answer, but and thank you so much for the talk. It was fascinating, really, really great. My doubt would be that you spoke for me about like 2 different ontologies. One that is the body of orifice, which is an ontology of multiplicity, right? And the other one then suddenly was this kind of dualism. So I like to know basically how you go from one into the other one. And you mentioned very quickly transdualism, and I thought, okay, what is transdualism? It might be like a like a super big question at this point of the evening, but yeah, even if you don't go into the transdualism, just like how you move from the body of orifice as this ontology of multiplicity into the dualism, right? Even though it can be like up or down, or you reverse these 64 forms, but they're always combinations of 2 models, right? Okay, so yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
transdualism in 30 seconds. That's
I've said 30 seconds. Maybe instead of talking about transdualism, which is the title of the current book, so it's a whole operation, right? I can mention that this comes from a observation that I have been seeing in curatorial text, critical theory, and so on, that we often read, we need to go beyond dualism. We need to critique dualism, yeah? Isn't this a dualistic operation itself, right? Instead of, but, right? So do we have other ways to think about this, to critique dualism without resorting to a dualistic mode of operation? So that's the question that is behind all this thinking, and then yin yang became a very fertile place to think about it, precisely because it has not let's say pretend it could be done with the number 2. But then the number 2, when the number 2 comes in the yin-yang model, it's not necessarily dualistic in the sense of a hierarchical opposition, right? So that's the project, and we can.
No, and it's an extremely exciting project where, as your talk was showing, like there can be, in this concept that you develop, different stations while maintaining some forms of porosity, and really that loops back very beautifully in what you said. Thank you, Zairong.
Thank you. Merci.